Imagine you own your home and you have this nosy next door neighbor who comes in and says, I don't like the color of those walls. Why did you choose that kind of flooring? You need to change that. That furniture? No, it's outdated. Choose something else. It will be better for us. We have to look after the community and what the community likes. And the community has agreed that that's not the right look for us. And you would think, who in the world are these people? They have no rights to tell me how I must run my home. As long as you're living in it and you're doing what's comfortable for you and you're doing what's legal, nobody has a right to tell you how to run your home. So then, why is it that some people think that it is quite okay for us to have elected officials who make deals with our neighbors? And those neighbors have more of a say in what goes on in the home of our country than we do. And those elected leaders have made those deals with other nations without any consultation with you. Yet those deals are affecting your life and will affect generations to come. I'm Dr. Lisa Ann Chung, a political leadership strategist, and I'm also the president for Kenley College, where we provide leadership training and strategy for aspiring politicians. Now, think with me. When you have your home, whether it is that you outrightly own it or you own the rent, you have the rental agreement, you are still in charge of that home. The elected leaders are there to represent your interest, or that is how it should be in a democracy. They are representing what you want as a country, not what they want as individuals. Isn't that how it should be? At the start of the pandemic, before we had all the lockdowns, all nations started to hold their corners. Did you remember that? You had to look out for yourself. You had to look out for your people. And what was the beauty that came out of that, apart from some interesting songs? We had people starting to think again about the necessity of sovereignty. We had people starting to think again about who they had in their nations, the potential they had in their countries, and the things that they could have done if they had not outsourced almost everything to other nations. They realized that we might be able to survive, we might actually be able to thrive and be really good for our country if we could take things on and start to look at, there's more we can do for ourselves than we actually realized all along. Now, does it mean that we don't collaborate with other countries? Of course, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just talking about us ensuring that when we make deals with other nations, we're doing it in consideration first of the people who elected you to office, rather than for the global community. Because after all, who are you representing? Who are you accountable to? Your nation first, or the global community first? There is something powerful about securing your nation first. If you've gone on a plane, and some of you may have started to fly again, when you have a pre-departure briefing, what do they say? What do the ear hostess say, or air host? Put the safety mask on put the oxygen mask on your face first, and then you can help someone beside you. Well, that is the same thing that we need to be looking at with nations. If we aren't taking care of our people first, how can we help some other country? How can we help other countries? We got to put our safety mask on. We've got to put our oxygen mask on first before we can start looking at other people. It's not a matter of being selfish. It's a matter of survival. It's a matter of doing what makes sense and is practical so that you are in a better position to help others. You know, there is just as much peer pressure on the individual level as there is on a national level. So you have political leaders making decisions because, well, everybody else is doing it. And if you think about it, the things that we talk to teenagers about, and we talk to people school-aged about and watch out for the peer pressure, Maybe we need to talk to more politicians about this, because how many of our politicians are succumbing to peer pressure to make deals with other nations without considering the implications for their own nation and without consultation with their own nation? When we start talking about treaties, we cannot neglect our people first we cannot put our people at the expense of the global community. We called it the greater good. We always have to look out for the greater good. But whose greater good? The greater good of the global community or the greater good of my own country? Shouldn't it be my nation first? It's not about being selfish. It's about practically taking care of the people who elected you to office, so that then you're in a better position for your nation to be able to thrive and to be able to develop at a faster rate, at a better rate than it could if it's too busy trying to put the safety mask, the oxygen mask on everybody else first. And what we've seen, even as a result of the pandemic, is that technocracy, so all of these experts and these scientists and all of them, they have dealt a sledgehammer blow to democracy. We don't know what's going on. We've not been consulted. And you know, the Washington Post says something very interesting. Democracy dies in darkness. Did the greater good elect you? Are you looking at the signs? Are you looking at what is best for your people? When you're in this position, I want you to ask yourself some questions. Whose interests are you representing? Who are you ultimately accountable to? And when you're thinking of treaties, some of us need to find out a few things. So, who initiated the treaty? What were their motives? What do they have to gain? And what do they have to lose? If we choose to sign on, what do we gain? What do we lose? What are all the implications, all of them, of us signing on? Can we trust who are we signing an agreement with? Will they be fair with how it is executed, or will they be more favorable or more influenced by a particular country, by a particular leader? And if they are more influenced by a particular country and a particular leader, are we okay? Are we clear? Are we at peace with that country, with that leader? And are we okay with what they do in their country and how that might have great impact for the better or worse of our people? Allow me to state the obvious. The organization or the country that initiates the treaty is going to be looking after their interests first. So you need to think of who is really initiating the treaty. Where is it really coming from? Who is really benefiting at the end of the day? Is there anyone pulling strings? You know, we wouldn't have a problem saying that in office politics. So why do we have a problem saying that reality of who's pulling the strings when we're talking about real politics of a country? When you think about a new treaty, that's one of them is going to be discussed, is in the process of being discussed this week. When you think about that global treaty, think of a subscription. Is the subscription working for you? If it's not, why are you taking out a new subscription? So we recently had to look at the accounts and see, where are we spending as normal? What's necessary? What's really waste for the company? And we realized that there was a subscription that we were taking out that we hadn't really benefited from. And the interesting thing is that subscription was taken out around the time when we went into first lockdowns. At the time, the way it was sold to us, it sounded like such a practical thing. It was going to be a good thing. It was a good thing for the business. Reality was, it didn't meet up to its expectations. What was the more interesting part was a couple months ago, I get an email and they want to have a talk with me to upsell a new service. Now, I'm sure you could figure out what upsell is, even if you're not in marketing. And it's basically one of those things where you already buy into something, and so they realize they got you, let's sell you something else, probably at a more premium rate. And that's what we were dealing with. And I said, you know something, this is a smart company to try to upsell us because we're already one of their customers. But we are smart too. And we realize this isn't working for us. This subscription that we've taken out is not cutting it. So why would we take on an additional cost, something that would cost us more, would be a greater investment? If the first thing isn't working, why would we take out even more, commit ourselves to something at a greater level? And that's what I see was happening with this WHO treaty. In the heart of the pandemic, what we got from the WHO, we have some questions about what went on. There was inconsistency. We saw that there was a lot of things that were decided on based on what they heard from a particular country. It wasn't necessarily what was best for the global good. Now they're trying to upsell something new that will give them greater power, that will strip the sovereignty of our countries, because nobody wants to talk about the sovereignty element. If you can come in and you can decide to strike the hammer, and we've all got to jump and we've got to do what you say because you have greater rights than the nation's people, I've got to have a lot of questions about you. I think that something like that should have been brought to the public. Yes, possibly a referendum. Why is everything being rushed through? Why is it that when we first started to experience the effects of this pandemic, people were appreciating sovereignty, and the minute things started to settle down and we were starting to come to some level of normalcy, all of a sudden now you want to put in more stringent measures? You want to have greater weight when your original weight leaves much to be desired? We need to be smart about this new subscription. Did it deliver on the promises? Did the WHO deliver on their original promises of what they're supposed to be about? And if they didn't deliver the first time, who says they're going to deliver a better product, a better service, a better outcome this time around? You have to think for yourself. Think for yourself as a leader. Think for your nation. What is in their best interest? Treaties cannot take away our sovereignty. They cannot, they must not, they should not, however you want to put it. No treaty should be superior to sovereignty. No treaty should be superior to your constitutional rights. And no principled leader should be going into a meeting to discuss a treaty of this nature that will possibly strip sovereignty, strip this kind of decision-making power away from the people without any consultation with the people to say yes or no. Where is the consultation? Why was this hidden and not shared so widely so that people could start to think and people could question? Why is it almost feeling as if it was almost a leak? We didn't want to discuss it too much and discuss the implications, maybe is the better way to say it. We don't want to discuss what we will be signing away. But it's not your home, president or prime minister, whoever you are. It's not your own home. You are a representative for the home. And therefore, you cannot make a decision without consulting the owners, the people who elected you to be in a position to be at that meeting. I can't agree to join up with a group or a block or any kind of organization without thinking of who's going to be making the decisions. We can't have blurred lines. We need to be clear. Who is influencing the decisions? Who is ultimately accountable for those decisions? And who we are ultimately accountable for? That's just some questions I want you to think about as you go through this week. Because people who don't have a legal stake in your home or the home of your country should not have superior rights to you to determine what goes on in your home or in the home of your country. Just some thoughts. Have a great week.